Hello and welcome to this webinar. First of all, I would like to make sure you know a bit more about myself. So my name is Pierre and I work as a technical evangelist at Bonitasoft. My job, this is to facilitate the adoption of the Bonita platform that you may already know. So I'm very active on communities, and I do also a lot of technical, intelligence. The idea is to identify and develop innovative approaches. So today we are really working on a lot on different things. We have blockchain, for example, or adaptive case management, and also digital signature, for example. Before that, I was also working for Bonitasoft, but as a technical consultant. So I also have some experience in the Bonita project management. That could be helpful if you have any kind of questions about that. Today, I will not be the only presenter of this webinar. We have David Marcus from UiPath that will co-present with me. David, do you want to introduce yourself, maybe in a few seconds?
Sure, absolutely. So, hello everyone. My name is Dave Marcus. I'm the VP of Product Strategy and Alliance Management for UiPath, focusing on the digital process automation space. And we have a new partnership with Bonitasoft that we're really excited about. And looking forward to talking to you a little bit later on. Thank you.
Thanks, David. All right, so we are both here to present this webinar. The title is, this is what you see on the screen right now. It's Bonita and UiPath, BPM and RPA technologies complementarity. RPA is a powerful technology that is getting broadly used today. I guess that's maybe many of you already use that. But sometimes it's also identified as a competitor of BPM. So obviously, I can tell you that it's not really the case. If we are here today together, it's because we believe it's a different kind of needs that are being addressed by the two technologies. And actually, it's very interesting to combine them in order to respond more efficiently to the different problems and business contexts an organization faces with digital transformation. So we'll start with a short presentation of a few slides. The idea is to quickly introduce you to our companies, important concepts, and then we'll go through demonstration and Q&A sections. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to ask directly in the questions section that you can use from the GoToWebinar tool. This is the tool that you use to connect. Depending on the question, David and I will answer it directly during the presentation, if it makes sense, or we'll obviously keep it for the end. As I told you, we have a dedicated time for this at the end of the session, so we'll do some Q&A at the end. All right, that being said, I think we can just start with the first topic. So again, if you don't see my screen, tell me, but I think you do. And I will be starting with Bonitasoft. So if I have to define Bonitasoft in a few words, I would say that we are the largest open source provider of intelligence BPM management solution. Today we have a community of more than 130,000 people or members, if you want. We also have more than 1,000 customers worldwide, and we have also a lot of partners. Regarding investors and also analyst recognition, you can see the main ones on this slide. So maybe you recognize Gartner or Forrester, for example. That might help you to learn about it. About BPM now. So Bonitasoft is the company, but we developed the Bonita solution. What we call the Bonita solution is a digital transformation solution that creates enterprise applications. And this is really about connecting user interfaces, business data, and also business rules for better user experience. So this brings together a full cycle. This is written here on the slide. So you have this discovery, this analysis, design, implementation, execution, monitoring, and optimization that we need to do regarding the processes, but also the decisions around that. So that's what we are doing right now with the platform. We say that Bonita solution is a BPM solution because the business rules are standardized thanks to the BPM. So BPM stands for Business Process Management. Or maybe you know BPMN, which is the notation that is used for this. The idea is really to help to orchestrate activities of a lot of different types, mainly human or automatic. So the idea is to have processes that can be of any level of complexity. And by that I mean any kind of time, actors, data, user interface, and so on. On this slide, I've put together some key facts about the solution, the Bonita solution. The idea is really to show you a bit more about the use cases, but the typical use case would be a validation flow or investigation maybe. But typical doesn't mean that this is limited to that. Theoretically, there is no limit of what you could manage using BPM. The good thing is that Bonita answers that the business application could be easily evolved and maintained. So that's really the warranty that we provide through the solution. All right, about the usage. So the main goal of the Bonita solution is to help companies work differently in order to enable innovation and eventually maintain or obtain strategic benefits in your organization. With this approach and our platform, I put some examples actually on this slide. So you can see that our customers are seeing their risks reduced. So it's by 30% for BBVA, for example. And they also improve their operational efficiency while making big savings. So you can see that there is an estimation of 2 million at BMS. That's another example. Regarding customers, so any organization that has some business rules will be able to benefit from this approach that we have at Bonitasoft. And that's why we have a lot of customers in a lot of different industries. So this includes government, technology, financial services, retail, etc. So I've put a few well-known company logos on this slide in order to give you an idea of what kind of projects we're doing right now. But I want to stress on the fact that even smaller companies are actually using our platform in successfully. So that's not only about big customers. It's really a solution that is targeting multiple levels of complexity. All right, and that's all about Bonitasoft and Bonita solution. I guess I will just give the lead to David. David will talk a bit more about UiPath and their products. David, it's up to you.
So for those not necessarily familiar with UiPath, we are the fastest growing enterprise software company in history, actually. And it's sort of an interesting thing going on right now with this particular business. 1,500 enterprise customers, and that growth is from about just under 200 customers a little over a year ago, so you can get a feel for how significant the growth is. Large number of customers in both commercial as well as in public sector. About 1,000 employees today, and massive growth in employees for us based on customer demand as well, from about 150 people around about a year ago to well over 1,000 today, and a pretty sizable investment in the company, and we are that investment was based upon a well over $1 billion valuation as the company. And so I guess the one thing you should take away from this, not just related to UiPath, but the space for RPA is growing at just an unprecedented rate. And so on the one hand, for us as an organization, that's a significant thing, but it's also really interesting for the industry all up to see where this is going and what is happening. So let's just talk a bit about RPA, because people have different perspectives on what this is and what it isn't. And I'll give you a point of view. that we have on it. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's computer software that runs either on the desktop or on servers or in the cloud, depending upon your particular need. That can automate repetitive rule-based tasks typically performed by humans on their computer using the user interface to manipulate data and applications just as in human world. So imagine a situation where I am working in a bank and I may very well be involved in a loan process. I might have 3 or 4 different applications that I'm interacting with, maybe my CRM system, my core banking application, and then some other solution as well. And today there's a lot of manual work that is actually done and also a lot of repetitive information that is moved between those systems. Often those systems are not necessarily easy to access either. They may very well be legacy. They may not necessarily have formalized APIs, or even if they have APIs, some of the functionality that humans are actually working on may only be exposed via the interface. And so it varies from one application to another. The way you should think about it is essentially as a set of visual tools to enable you to use robots to mimic human actions. It can work on any application, whether that be on the desktop or a web-based application, or in fact even a non-web-based application. It understands how to be able to read and action data in a structured form. So if I was going to have an application, for instance, that read information from a spreadsheet, updated some back-end system, and then made some particular decision related to that particular data, you could do that all with a robot and all at scale. And as you can imagine, these robots are running 24 hours a day. We have customers running many of these at incredible scale and getting a huge amount of benefit out of it. It's particularly important because for predictive processes, particularly these robotic activities get done, number one, without necessarily making mistakes. They run all the time. It's not necessarily that a human makes mistakes, but when you're moving data between multiple applications in a repetitive way, it is relatively easy to get to a point where the predictability around that process isn't as compelling when a human is doing it. And also we want to be able to enable people to work more efficiently and be able to utilize robots in a fairly assisted way with the way those organizations run. One of the things that's fairly compelling to a lot of customers about RPA is that unlike long, complex process management projects, it is relatively quick and easy to implement and very powerful to scale. And so a lot of customers may start small. The nice thing about starting small is you get things going really quickly. You get the return of investment quickly, and by default that triggers off a number of other projects, especially as people get more visibility into what you can actually do with RPA and where this is all going. And it's going into some really interesting areas that I'm going to call the intelligent RPA space, which is really all about, intelligent workforce automation in ways that are sort of unprecedented in the past. And when you bring RPA technology together with things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, there's some amazing things that you can ultimately achieve. So just at the high level, I want to give you a bit of a feel for some of the things typically that one would do. One of the things that is nice right now is that unlike a couple of years ago, RPA has got so much exposure that it's become on the part of the strategic agenda for many companies and one of the top handful of key focus items for any CIO in an organization to help support the business. It's about making processes more efficient and about the effectiveness of these services by augmenting human capabilities with robots. As I mentioned earlier, it's really focused around being able to increase speed and productivity, being able to provide much better insight because you have a full tracking audit of what has actually gone on, how quickly things have taken. It allows you to leverage humans in more of an exception management process rather than letting them have to do mundane day-to-day tasks that a robot can handle on their behalf. It enables people to really upskill and focus on far more significant decision-making roles. And for a lot of our customers, that's a significant value proposition. And because of the fact that it provides this a high degree of auditability, trackability, and predictability, it also means that the opportunities to be able to get far greater compliance out of an investment in RPA than when something may just be done with a human in its own right. I wanted to share two of many case studies that we have today Just to kind of set the context, the first one is interesting in that it's actually a pilot project. So this was actually delivered before it's almost sort of a pre-sales type phase. It was a fairly comprehensive particular need for the Department of Works and Pension. It was delivered fairly quickly in a couple of weeks, and this is relatively typical for RPA-based engagement. And you can see, the dollars saved alone, or sorry, the pounds here saved alone just on the pilot. And so, I think we see this fairly consistently right now, that people start off, they find really, really quick return on investment, and by default, that means that they're starting to then utilize the technology to automate many, many processes. One of the interesting things we've seen in the RPA space is the fact that it's not uncommon to, then scale out and deploy many new robots to do many, many different process automation activities because of this massive quick return on investment. Same type of thing associated with companies like Equifax in the US, where, ultimately at the end of the day, like many of the RPA processes, it's focused heavily around boosting productivity, enabling a better level of service for their customers, providing significant immediate ROI, and you can see the payback period here as well. That is relatively quick payback. We've had many customers that have had shorter payback terms than this, but this is a relatively typical payback experience. So I mentioned that we have a very broad range of customers. Today, we really are a global company with customers in many, many countries around the world. We've also invested very heavily in putting people into many countries around the world in order to support those customer engagements. But you can see the types of brand names here in everything from financial services through high tech, through healthcare and life sciences. And this is just a really small handful of logos of companies utilizing us for a very broad range of things. Sometimes it's used at a department level, at least to start off with, and other times it's expanded to be utilized very broadly in a large number of processes. HP, as an example, is a customer of ours, and GE as well. They've really scaled out their operation for RPA to be able to leverage it heavily across the entire organization. And we definitely see that as something significant.
And I will take the lead on this. Basically here, I just show a quick comparison, but we should call it a summary of the main features of the BPM and RPA solutions. Again, some kind of reminder, most organizations are using digital transformation to focus on innovation. The idea is to get a chance to maintain or gain competitive advantages. As part of this digital transformation, BPM platforms will often be used as an orchestration or standardization tool, and RPA platforms will be used to automate repetitive tasks. So we could say that the BPM allows to understand how to innovate, and RPA allows to make sure you have time to do it. Regarding some specificities, if I take the BPM part at first, we'll have some kind of business applications that will include business data, so that could be even global for the whole company. We have user interfaces, APIs, security, and so on. We also have the business logic that is represented by business processes. Business processes that could be structured or not. And we also focus on strong or complex interactions with humans. So that means that when you need some judgments, or when you have like complex forms or long life cycle, then BPM will be really useful. Regarding the RPA specificities, I think we can highlight that it enables you to interact with systems that are accessible only by UI exclusively, because there is no APIs, for example. Basically, old or obsolete, systems that cannot be upgraded, political or cost reasons, and also the fact that it gives you some access to individual specific automation. So if with BPM is something that is more centric to an organization. To have robots could be individual. You could build, for example, your robots for your own task. I think that's all I had to say. At least a quick summary on my side. David, do you want to add something on that?
Yeah, I would So the other thing that I didn't mention earlier on that's just important to keep in mind is that typically RPA is used in two different scenarios, what we call an unattended scenario and then one that we call an assisted scenario. If you think about an unattended scenario, this is typically where the RPA technology is running in the back end. A good example of that might be leveraging a robot to ingest invoices as part of an accounts payable process, go and do all of the data extraction of those particular invoices, and then based upon either an extraction of the data itself that you get out of the invoice or a level of confidence around that particular extraction, involve a human or not involve a human in that particular initiative. But the core part of the process that the robot is actually running in that case is unattended. In an assisted scenario, it is more typical for the robot to actually run alongside the human. Typical use cases are contact center use cases or call centers, where you may have a situation where a human is actually interacting with another person on the other side of a phone, and they are leveraging RPA almost in a real-time way to be able to provide them better information to their particular customers. So for instance, if it happened to be about looking up customer records across multiple systems, you could have a robot actually do that, return the information to the user get, or to the call center operator. That particular person gets the data, they can communicate with the customer. Alternatively, even when it comes to actually updating multiple systems in an assisted way, the same type of approach happens. And this can be highly interactive in nature, or it can be sort of less interactive. But as I mentioned, it's really, really important to keep in mind that those two focus areas are important for organizations to look at as they explore RPA. We also happen to be one of the very few players that provide a very consistent approach for both assisted and unattended scenarios, and it's a major differentiator for us as an organization.
Thank you, Dave. I think we can just move to the next slide. And next slide is really to show you that things are complementary. So BPM will be using RPA to, in the business processes. The idea is to delegate RPA-specific activities. So that could be done, for data extractions, input, and UI actions, as Dave was saying. On the other side, we have RPA that will be using BPM so that robots can delegate specific actions to BPM business applications. So that implicate multiple actors, ask for human judgment, enable complex, user interfaces, these kind of things. All right, so integrating BPM based and RPA-based application development platforms, I think it will increase the, the overall solution performance. The result is something that is like a complete solution to manage end-to-end digital transformation, and that's leverage digital automation, obviously, but also exceptions and complex decision-making by human actors where appropriate. So that's really to summarize the complementarity. If David, you want to add something on this, or do you think I made it well?
No, I think that the only other thing that I would say is it's important, we do find today that there are in some ways two different groups of people that very often are the domain owners for BPM versus RPA. And as customers start thinking about how to be able to leverage these two domains together, as was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of significant value to be added here in thinking about leveraging them for a primary focus around digital transformation. Or certainly customers are using this in a more tactical way as well to be able to bring together, as was mentioned, application integration that may not necessarily be available through common or modern APIs, and leveraging RPA in a sort of a departmental way for more mundane task management. It's a very common scenario for us to see, especially for customers to start with. And as they start and they continue to go on, we're seeing these technologies deployed in a much more pervasive way. It was mentioned earlier on that one of the things that RPA does really well is handle a lot of these predictable processes that are highly repetitive in nature. By default, what that also means is that it's just an okay job in dealing with processes that have significant exception management needs where humans are involved, and bringing the BPM world together with RPA really helps to be able to bring those two capabilities together and streamline the initiatives that companies have for process automation all up.
All right, thank you. Next slide is about the partnership that we have. So I don't know if everyone here heard about it, but because of the BPM and RPA complementarity, obviously Bonita and UiPath kind of, signed a technological partnership. So it has been announced recently. This initiative really includes the integration of all technologies in our respective solutions. The idea is really to ensure their connectivity, but it's also a collaboration about projects that can be, really used with the two approach, RPA and BPM. I don't think we have so much else to say about it. Maybe a bit more about the integration. So what we'll be doing is based on what we call the studio and the engine. At first, maybe you need to know that Bonita and UiPath solutions, they are both based on Development Studio and Runtime Engine. So on the Development Studio side, we have Bonita Studio, for your business applications, and on UiPath we have the UiPath Studio, which allows you to define your robots. Regarding the runtime, we have both engines. So Bonita will have its own engine, and UiPath too. It's called Orchestrator, if I'm not wrong. All right. So the target is really to have both solutions well integrated, and we'll be doing that, adding two things in our products. The first one is on the Bonita side. We'll be providing UiPath connectors, and this will be useful to make sure you can launch robots directly from a process. And on the UiPath side, we'll be having Bonita specific activities that could be used directly from the UiPath Studio, and then it will, you will be able to launch basically Bonita actions directly from robots. So these actions will be like launch a new case, execute a task, or maybe generate some kind of BPM and message, even these kind of things. All right. So on my side, I really believe that this will make things much easier in terms of interactions between the two systems or the two platforms, and this will obviously help to respond with efficiency to any kind of use cases that a company can encounter during digital transformation activities. Anything on your side, David, that maybe I forgot?
Yeah, I think just to sort of echo what's been said, the focus is to create this bi-directional integration for everything from inbound to the robotic process, all the way to dealing with robotic exceptions that might then trigger off more formalized BPM-based workflows and interactions. It's our goal is also to make sure that we can leverage the openness of both of our platforms, but at the same point in time to tool it in such a way that you have these kinds of integration capabilities without having to go and do any work in your own right. And so obviously, as you might imagine, the nature of both of our platforms being as open as they are enables customers to be able to really do this today. But our goal is to ensure that you literally have the tooling built into the products to ensure that you don't have to go and worry about how the integration works. You can just do some basic configuration, and all these pieces are put in place together with you, and you can actually focus more on the process and on the improvement initiatives that you want, rather than having to figure out how to handle integration.
That being said, we want to illustrate that. So I will continue with a quick demonstration. So this has been developed using Bonita for the BPM part, of course, and UiPath for the RPA part, of course. This is an opportunity for you to better understand the benefits, obviously, for the end user, but also for the development team. So on my side, I think I would like to highlight the fact that, this kind of interactions that we are using between RPA and BPM here during this demonstration is really something that is visual oriented. Obviously, some use cases won't be that visual oriented. David was talking about unattended, kind of use cases from RPA. This is something that is really difficult to show or display, so that's why I didn't really cover that, or I will not cover that today, but it's just to show you that it's just, restricted view of what you could do. It's just an illustration. All right, so let's move forward. this use case that we'll be working on. So it's called end-to-end loan request management, and it obviously takes place in at a bank. So we basically choose this use case because it's a good example of the type of case where BPM and RPA solutions are often used. On the BPM side, for example, that will be business applications that are really dependent on business processes. And why? The why would be because there is a strong regulation in the industry, and human judgments are often required during these processes. On the RPA side, I think it's really because there is a large number of repetitive task sequences, large volume of process, large amount of extraction that you need to do, and data entry based on them. And there is also a lot of banking systems that are totally old and are really not user-friendly to operate. They are often written in Fortran, which is really an old language, and this is something that doesn't really evolve that much. Regarding the demonstration flow, we will have a customer that will send a loan application online to the bank, and that will be done from a BPM application, a Bonita BPM application. And we have a second application on Bonita again, and this will be the one used by the bank advisor. This guy will basically process the application that has been received. Just a reminder, it's a demonstration, so the real business process obviously is much more complex than what we have today. It has been greatly simplified for the purpose of this demonstration. So usually we have like a lot of different actors, different systems to interact with, and also a lot of different things about access rights. All right, so in this demonstration, we'll be focusing on two different UiPath robots that will be launched during the business applications. So the first one will be a manual launch, and that will be done directly from a Bonita task form. The idea is to automatically use OCR technology to extract information from a given PDF and then submit this information to the business application. Regarding the second one, this one will be fully automatic. That means that it will be launched directly from a connector used by a business process, and the idea is to transfer the approved information to a really old banking system that does not have any API, and that is not really easy to use, as I was discussing before. All right, so now we are all set. I guess we can just move forward to a live demonstration. So what I will be doing is to show you to launch the application. Just give me 1 sec, I'm doing that. All right, should be up and running here. First thing that you see here is the first application on Bonita, being the one for the customer. So we'll create a new request here. What we'll be doing is a loan for main house of 200,000. What we'll be doing is about, I don't know, maybe 10 years, have no idea. And we'll be using our test name. All right. So I submit the information. What will happen now is that we have this here. So you see it has been refreshed. So this is our loan that we just created. And you see that it's waiting for credit history here. So the first thing that we'll be doing is, as an operator, that's the bank advisor, by the way. That's the second application here. This bank advisor will be able to see all the loan requests. The one that we have here is the one that we just requested. And what we'll be doing is, to perform all the tasks that are necessary during the process to make sure that this loan is approved or not, depending on the situation. So here, what we want is to provide some credit history because the amount is too high. We want to make sure that this information is provided. So we'll click here, and you see here we'll be having a form that is specific to a task, and this task is coming from the business process. And what we'll be doing regularly without any RPA is an operator providing information directly from the on the form. What we assume here is that PDF is sent by some other departments of the bank, doing the background check or something. And then what we'll be doing is, opening the PDF, making sure that we extract the numbers, and we'll put that directly on the form. That's how an operator will be working. Today, what we'll be doing is slightly different. We'll automate that. We'll be using a robot for this. So that's why I put that on the form directly. What we have here is just the location of the PDF that we want to use. By default, it's going to my desktop. So that's why I just have the name of the file. And when I will hit this button, it will basically launch a UiPath robot that we have defined to do the job. So I will just proceed. And now I'm just doing nothing, and UiPath should take the lead. So you see it's opening the Acrobat Reader, and just to make sure that the PDF is open, then it's extracting the information and returning the information to Bonita. And after this step, you see, so it was fully automatic. I didn't have to do nothing as a human. And the benefit of this is that the information has been extracted and basically provided to Bonita directly. And this is why you see the status that changed on the loan. And now we have a review needed, which is not the same because, the credit history has been provided. So at this stage, again, we should have multiple actors. So you could think about a manager making sure that we need to take a decision about these numbers, and maybe this loan is valid or not. So here we just say that basically the manager has to perform something at this stage. So here we just valid. This task is now done, so we can just specify, the rate and how many months the contract will be using. Again, we do a task here in the BPM because we need some kind of judgment, and we need some people to do that. So there is some kind of expertise that is required to do this. So that's why we do this. So we have this task now that is done. What we need here is a signature from the customers. So here it's a test. And the customer, again, will have that directly from maybe the dashboard on the application, for the customer. Here, again, we simplify. And as soon as we have this done, as a bank, we want to validate the contract. We want to review that, the signature is not a fake, for example. So what we can say here at this time is if something has been approved. And for that, we just have to hit this button and provide the new status. When we will hit this button, what will happen behind the scene is that the case will be over. And as I told you, we have a second robot, UiPath robot, that will be launched automatically this time. And this is why I don't click on the button now. I want to explain exactly what will happen. When I will do it, it will open some kind of a simulation of obsolete application, banking system application. And this application purpose is to credit the fund to the customer. So this is typically something that we will be able to find in banking or financial services. So I will hit this button, and you will see that there is some kind of a simulation that will open, and this will be done directly using a second robot from UiPath. So I will just hit this button and wait. I just put that on the screen. So I don't do nothing, but you see that the system is now entering all the information. And this is coming from the process on the BPM side. We collected this information and validated all this information. But using something automatic with a robot, using just simulating clicks and a keyboard here on the keyboard, because it's not user-friendly system, we are able to enter the information directly to another system without any error. And this was not really easy to make using only BPM, because BPM is usually leveraging some kind of connectors that will be using APIs. So that's where RPA could be really helpful in this kind of cases. And you see that as soon as it's done, then now we have closed things. And you see that maybe you remember this one, that was the amount that we were using. So this one is now approved, and you see that it has been done automatically. All right, so that's all about the quick demonstration of the application. But I think maybe if I can take a few minutes to go deeper into details about the development, maybe that will be helpful for you. So what I will be doing here is opening my studio. So this is the Bonita Studio. As I was telling you, we have two different applications. So that's why you see two different applications here. This is where you can specify all the pages and so on that we'll be using. Then we have the main process that we use. So here, maybe you recognize the task to enter the credit history. So that's the human task that we were using, to collect the information about the credit history. And on the other side, we have the second robot that is performed directly from this task that is called credit funds. So, and you see that there is a connector here. So that's exactly I won't show you all the process, right? But these two main tasks are the ones that are, leveraging RPA. So that's why I show it to you. This process obviously use what we call business data that is coming from BDM. If you already use that, so you remember maybe the credit history information. That is something that you may know if you're part of the US. If you may be knowing Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. These are credit history scoring systems. So you can basically have this information stored in the business data, and all the nonce will be stored here. So again, it's pretty simplified here, but that's illustrates pretty well how you could build that. In terms of UI, you can see that many tasks are human tasks, and what we are doing from the Bonita platform is to specify, the forms that would be specific to this task, and directly from what we call the UI designer. So the UI designer is really something that will help to design, all the UIs, and most of them will be part of the forms, but we also have pages that will be used directly for the business applications. So you will be using this UI designer for all of this, and this is part of the default way to build a business application with Bonita platform. Yeah, we have a couple more minutes. So what I will be doing is to show you maybe how these robots are called. The first one, if you remember, was directly from a form, and the form is basically interacting with REST APIs. So we created this extension. So I will open it here to show you. This extension purpose is basically to, make sure you can run some command from a terminal of the operating system. So we've done that because we don't have this integration done yet with UiPath. But that would come obviously, and that would be much more performance. But what I've done so far is to launch this command that is provided by a parameter from the REST API call, and this call will trigger this command on the OS terminal. I will be showing the load management again, and this process again has a task with the form. So I will show you the form here. That will open the UI designer, and in this UI designer I will be able to show you that we actually provide command directly when we make the call. All right, so you remember maybe this form. We were hitting this button to make sure that the robot is launched. So you see that this button is basically calling the extension, the REST API extension, and as part of the body, we have this variable that is provided. And you see that in this variable, we have this command parameter that we can provide. What we do is to call UiPath specific executable to make sure that the robot is executed. We provide the definition of the robot. So this is the one. It's XAML. This is the first robot definition. And as part of UiPath, you can provide some kind of inputs. So as part of this input, I provide the PDF location where to extract the information from, and I also provide the task ID to make sure that, so the task ID, by the way, is specific to Bonita, is to make sure that as soon as the job is done, UiPath robot knows what kind of call to be done and to execute the right task with the right information that has been extracted from the PDF. So that's what we are doing from the REST API extension. The second one, though, is not exactly the same, because we are using a connector this time. I told you it's totally automatic and it's coming from the process, so that's why we are able to use a connector. If I open this connector, that's pretty much the same ID as the REST API extension, which is to launch a command on the under the operating system. So here the command is slightly different because, again, we don't have the same robots. So here you recognize maybe the executable. So this is a variable, but it's the same thing. The description file will be different because, again, we have different robots, and the inputs that we provide will be slightly different too because we have different robots. This robot, again, is keep extracting information from the business data and make sure that this information is provided into the system that is a legacy system for the bank services. So that's what we are doing here. We provide the first name, last name, and so on, and all of this is coming from the business data. So you recognize maybe all this information that has been provided for the to the application. So all of this is coming from Bonita business data. All right. I think that pretty much sum up what I was planning to show. Maybe Dave, you wanna in maybe 1 minute, maybe you wanna discuss a bit more about UiPath. It's good to have some kind of a big picture of what you can do on the UiPath and what kind of tasks you can provide into your robots, or maybe a bit more about the architecture.
Yep, absolutely. So
Cool.
So let's just talk about this really briefly before we go to questions. So there are three key elements to the UiPath environment. In no particular order, the first is UiPath Studio. It's a visual design environment that allows you to drag and drop artifacts onto a canvas that essentially replicate what a user is doing. You can do this in two ways. The first way is through a built-in recorder function that we actually have in the product. So essentially what that does is you turn the recorder on, a user then sits in front of this, that user goes through the typical process that they would do by interacting with multiple applications. We understand how to be able to track and manage all those click and data entry activities, and to be able to ultimately parameterize all of that data so that we can feed it in all dynamically rather than it being the static data that you're seeing individuals fill in when we're recording this. That recording is then turned into a configuration that a UiPath robot understands how to run when it's interacting with that application. In this particular case, it could either be, as I mentioned, on a desktop, or it could be on a server or on an infrastructure up in the cloud. We also have a concept of UiPath Orchestrator. This is a server or cloud service, and it is designed essentially to be able to manage a UiPath environment. As you can imagine, it's not uncommon to see customers deploying many of these robots in their organization. And in order to be able to do that, you need an ability to be able to manage this from a couple of different points of view. Number one, to be able to know what robots you have out there, the status and serviceability of those particular robots. But more importantly, from a scale point of view, also to have a mechanism of managing deployment effectively. So I can go and set up as many robots in as many environments as we like. We have the concept of multiple tenants, and robots can belong to tenants. And a tenant can either be a scenario that says it's a customer, or alternatively it could be departments or divisions within an individual organization that have robots affiliated with what they're doing. What that allows you to do is to be able to scope down the execution of robots to particular processes in the context of controlling tenants. And so that's one of the things you're able to do. You're then able to load up these particular processes and process definitions from what might be the Studio environment up into Orchestrator. And what that basically provides is a model that and then allows us to do deployment down to the actual robots themselves. And obviously you could either have a situation where all robots could run any process, and you can define what that means, or where specific robots are allocated to particular processes, or a combination of the two. And so it's an incredibly flexible architecture. It provides us the ability to be able to really manage effectively what is going on across the robot environment. The Orchestrator also has built in a lot of analytics and information that we collect and manage to be able to effectively get insight into what is going on in the infrastructure. So that's typically what the overall architecture at a very high level for UiPath looks like today.
Thanks, Dave. And I think that's a really good introduction to something I wanted to show. What I wanted to show is basically, the robots that we've done in this demonstration. So we have two of them. I told you that we have this description files, and these are the two files that we use. So the first one is, for this extraction of data coming from the PDF. So here you see, this is the studio of the UiPath, by the way, and this is what Dave was talking about. So you see that we have some kind of whiteboard, and on the right we have the properties. So you can just select something, and then it will show something on the right. It's kind of similar to what we have in the Bonita Studio. But here we are not dealing with processes, we are dealing with a sequence of actions. So here we have, the first one that we were doing in the first robot is really to open Acrobat Reader. So you see that you can specify some information. One of them would be part of the arguments. You remember this PDF location maybe. And this is the default value, but, I provide the one, an absolute path coming from my computer. What I'm doing next here in this robot is really to execute a task coming, with this information extract from the PDF. Then we can execute a task on the Bonitasoft side and provide the contract information based on this information that we have extracted. So what we are doing here is to use some kind of a jar file that I have designed just for this demonstration. And this is basically calling APIs to catch up with Bonita and execute this task with the information inside. And the last one is really to close the application, and that's pretty much it. What I call the application is Acrobat Reader. And maybe something that you need to understand is that everything that I'm doing here will be much easier, down the road when UiPath will include these activities that will be specific to Bonita. So here, for example, to execute a task, I'm just using some Java to use Java, but it could be even REST API calls. And this REST API calls will actually be what we will be using in these activities that we can specify. So here, I'm not an expert in UiPath, but what I know is that you can actually get these activities, and when Bonita 1 will be accessible, you will be able to load it directly as a plugin here, and this will make you, make Bonita specific actions available directly on this UiPath Studio for your sequence of flows of actions. And just to finish on this, the second robot is pretty similar. I just run a jar file that is simulating, the application, the legacy one, and you can see that we can simulate UI things. So here, for example, we just enter some keyboard, and that will do the job. So this kind of legacy systems, most of the time, you just use keyboard, you don't have mouse. So that's what we were doing here. We just provide information. And you can see sometimes we provide like the first name information, and this is also coming from the arguments. So this is why in the comment I provide all the inputs. This is coming here as an argument, and then it's used in the flow of actions that you define in your robots. All right, so before we close completely the session, again, I told you that we'll be doing, a questions session. So I really think it's important to check if there is any questions. If you have any questions, you can actually ask them directly using the questions section that is part of the GoToWebinar tool, and this tool is the one that you use to connect. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. If there is no questions, I guess we'll just close the session. Maybe a bit more information about the partnership. Dave, do you have any question, any information about your roadmap on your side? Maybe you can give some insights about when these Bonita activities will be available on the UiPath Studio, for example?
Sure, absolutely. So we're doing work on that right now to make sure that our marketing team are aligned with this particular partnership. and making that more visible on UiPath.com. I will mention one other thing that is on the slide here, right down the bottom on the right-hand side. For anyone who wants to experiment or look to leverage UiPath, we have the notion of a community edition. It is available free of charge for you. You go to our site, download it. It connects automatically to a cloud-hosted orchestrator environment and allows you a full access to the entire feature set of the UiPath RPA environment. We also provide you immediate access then to our academy for all of our learning and training material that also is available to you free of charge as well. And a lot of our customers and prospects tend to start off there, get some experience with the technology, and then look to deploy it further. So I definitely encourage you to do that as well.
Thanks, Dave. And I do not see too many questions so far. One about, I think that's, Victor is asking if we try to use UiPath RPA for process testing and debugging. And this is true. This is classic repetitive task. This is something that we do internally. I think that there are more specific tooling for this, like Selenium, these kind of things that will be more oriented to UIs. But I guess you can use some robots. Dave, do you have any insight on this on your side? Is it something that that is used?
Sure, I do. It is certainly a key scenario, and obviously it's an IT-centric scenario, but it's one that we found that people tend to use. Our own internal development organization makes extensive use of robots for our own QA process as part of our own development and testing environment. So it definitely is a very viable approach to do that, and it's a scenario that we encourage people to leverage.
Thanks, Dave. Another question from Shibu. Can we not call REST API directly from UiPath? So I think this is actually something that is doable because we are planning to have these activities using REST APIs to call Bonita. So I think the answer is yes, you can.
Yep, the answer to that is absolutely yes. And you can do that in two ways. You can either use our standard REST connector and plug in the parameters, the associated calls post get that you want to make, and then and then just like you would do it in any other connector type technology, including, think about it as pretty similar to the one that Bonita has, I'm assuming. The other way to do it is we provide an SDK to be able to make it possible to create custom activities so that your experience can be much more specific to the type of thing that you're connecting to, with some user-centric or some user context or configuration and so on. And you can take both of those approaches, but yes, we natively will integrate with the REST API directly from within a robotic process and configured within Studio.
All right, checking the question, and there is pretty much the same question, but from Bonitasoft, Bonita side. Is there any adapters to make sure that you can request UiPath? The answer is yes. I mean, this will be the connector that will be delivering pretty soon in order to interact directly with UiPath. Other than that, obviously you need a UiPath platform to make sure that your robots will be able to run on this orchestrator that Dave already discussed. So that's also linked to another question I got, and this is about this the licensing. So I will try to summarize, but obviously Dave, let me know if anything wrong. So Bonita and UiPath, they both have some community editions. On Bonitasoft side, the connectors will be provided as part of the subscription, or the enterprise edition if you prefer. So this is really something that will be helpful, to make sure that you have some support around it and so on. In terms of licensing between the two platforms, if you're using an enterprise editions, we are working on a lot of different inquiries today. We have our team working together, making sure that things make sense. If you have any kind of things that you want to check out, feel free to reach out with our teams. They are obviously specialized in this kind of matters, and they will be able to give you really clear answers regarding the way you can buy RPA or buy BPM, depending on the kind of projects and if it makes sense and so on.
Yeah, I would say the only thing is, as was mentioned, we have this downloadable community edition that is available to you. Its primary limitation is in the number of robots you can actually run licensed at any particular point in time with the community edition. If you want to be able to do more than that, or you want a rich load balanced infrastructure and so on, then you would typically use our enterprise offering. And generally that's licensed by robots. For the most part, there are some differences depending upon scope and size of the implementation. And again, in the same way as was mentioned earlier, I'd encourage you to reach out to our teams, and we're happy to discuss licensing models with you as appropriate.
Correct. I'm checking if there are any questions left, but I don't think I see any left, at least on my point of view, I don't see nothing. So maybe that's the right time to end the webinar if there is no other questions. Just a reminder, this has been recorded, so it will be made available on bonisoft.com website and also our YouTube channel. If you have any other questions, maybe later on, make sure that you check out the Bonita community. You will get answers from there. And if you really want to have specific questions about maybe licensing or whatever, feel free to contact directly us from our website. You will be able to do that. All right, so I think that's the time I thank you, David, and that I thank also all of you for your participation today. And I guess we'll talk to each other pretty soon for another topics. Dave, thanks again, and talk to you soon.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.